Do you know the real reason we stay stuck and how and to know when it's time to move on? Do you? Well, in my world, that's kind of what my story was. I worked on my book. I spent 5 years writing it, four of which were after my pause, more or less, 4.5 probably, and stayed at my job for 10 years at Google in sales, which I loved. But at the same time, I was so antsy and ready to do something different. And it was this tension of almost, but not quite. Have you been there? You know what that's like? Why do we do that to ourselves? Well, the good news is we can do something different. And when we know we're moving into something bigger, something better in the future, we can really fuel ourselves to to hang out, but not necessarily be in the doldrums and feel really terrible about it and feel unhappy. But sometimes, as we know, we don't make the moves that we want and we just stay there. We just stay stuck and it might be 2x, 3x longer. And who's here? Who here? Let's just turn this onto the relationship channel for a moment. Who here's been in one of those relationships where you're like, I think this isn't working, but yet you stay. You stay a long time. Maybe you're staying for a lifetime if you're married. Maybe it's years. I've been there. I know I've had relationships where a couple years before I knew I wasn't happy and yet I still stayed. And by the way, I hadn't done any inner growth work. So how did I didn't know and I didn't have the tools to really do what I wanted to do. And so we have all been there, I think. Maybe you are there now. Maybe you have a friend where you're hanging around unhappy. And so today we're talking about the cost of not taking the leap. We can recognize the signs of readiness, understand the resistance that we have, because we're all going to have that most likely, and then move anyway. So we don't just wake up one day and suddenly feel ready either. Oh, yeah, today's the day I'm going to quit my job. Like maybe that happens, but I'd say more or less it's not the case. At some point, we have to claim the boldness to act. We just do. And yeah, I think for you, when you think about yourself, what's your almost but not quite moment? We're going to talk about that today. And it might be things like the nagging feeling, knowing something's off, but you tell yourself you're okay. I can just move out and do this another 3 years before I retire. No problem. I have friends in that boat, by the way. Yeah, it's been okay for now. I'm making great money. The golden handcuff syndrome. That's another podcast episode, by the way. I don't know. I'm not in a real rush, but it'd be nice someday. Well, guess what? That's not that intentional and it's not going to get you anywhere. And then there's this other option maybe you've fallen into or know of something like this. Have you ever told yourself, "Mm, I'll wait till the time is right"? Yeah, yeah, it's just not the right time. Raise your hand loud and high if that's you. I know that's me too. I have been there as well. Dude, I know that space so well. It's not even funny. I stayed in that, writing the book pause, thinking the answer would magically appear. And the spoiler is, I hate to tell you, and you probably know this, but it doesn't. So, what are those hidden signs? We're going to talk about that. What are the hidden signs that you're ready for a change, even if you don't feel ready yet? How staying stuck actually drains you more than making a move. What it's like to do almost enough work, but not quite enough to get to where you want to go. And then how to know when it's time to make the move. How do you start? Because that's the cost of not taking the leap, right? What's the price you're paying is the question I have for you. When knowing you know what you want something else. I have a couple clients right now actually working on making a big move. They know they are not happy. They don't want to be in the job that they're in, and yet they have their sights on something different, a new job, a new town, a better way to feel. And I think it's twofold. So you can do any job if you know how to, with the right tools, how to feel. But I also think if you feel called for more, there is more for sure. So if you've heard that calling, like a little tap on the shoulder, guess what? You're in the right place because we're going to talk about that. So, what are those hidden signs? Let's just cover that first, that you're ready for a change. So, this I talk about as a way of knowing when you need a pause. And a pause is an intentional shift in behavior. It doesn't mean a radical move, but it might just be you're questioning what you're doing right now. Big sign. Is this really what I want? And maybe you don't like it anymore. you're kind of just going through the motions. That's a huge sign. And the other one, another one would be you're getting feedback that things aren't going well. Maybe you're in an environment, and I know a lot of folks like this, whose company is struggling right now. So there's layoffs happening, what I call a forced pause. Maybe that's a sign too. Maybe you're just in that space, but you're too scared to make a move and do anything different. You're just going after what you used to do, which is fine. And like no issues with it. But are you happy? Is that what's really serving you? To me, these are signs that you're ready for a change. The other signs in the book that I love to talk about is you need a technology intervention. So maybe you're just aimlessly scrolling the social media feeds. I get it, right? That's the dopamine rush that we all love and crave, and it's pretty inevitable because our brains crave that. We want more dopamine. They're rigged for things like feeling like a slot machine. That's the dopamine squirt we get when we're getting likes and we see funny dog videos, which I know I love to look at. Oh my goodness, don't get me started. Hashtag Shiba Inu. And the other signs that would be you're getting feedback or something isn't going in your favor. So there might be a challenge that's showing up for you. It might be a health challenge, might be a shoulder impingement that you fell on a ski slope. Laugh, laugh, like I just told that story. That's mine. Because I do think it was a message for me to slow down, even now, more so than ever. Uh, and that's okay. And then the fifth sign is there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity that's presented itself, which might be a forced pause. In my opinion, guess what? You walked head into an opportunity to look at yourself, to know what's working, what's not working, and to make things better. Maybe get more money. Maybe reinvent yourself. Maybe make a bold, audacious move that's been on your mind for literally decades, but you didn't do it yet. I don't know. It could be different, but maybe there's one of those signs. So just take a moment and think and reflect. What is it that that's showing you you're ready for a change, even if you don't feel like you're 100% there? Okay. So knowing that there's hidden signs and the universe is sneaky, I think there might be things that subtly happen, but if you're not aware, if you're not pausing to be aware, whether it's how you feel or notice what's around you as you're present, you're going to miss it. And that to me is the power of pause too, is that it shows up and it brings us into the present moment because we have to be with ourselves. And man, I can tell you that is not comfy sometimes. And if you've had that experience, maybe a layoff, maybe an unfortunate event like a challenge that's a health issue, it's not fun. We don't like it. And so we need to step into something different. But the question is, how do we make the leap? And here's the other thing I want to move into at this point of this conversation. How does staying stuck drain you more than actually making a move? Who here has that resonating right now? I'm staying stuck and I'm feeling more drained because I'm just exasperated. I'm thinking about it all the time. You might be in the 100th version of the story you're telling yourself, why you're staying there, whatever that is. It might be because of the fears, the resistance that you're feeling. That is so draining and exhausting, right? Because we're just ruminating. It's like our brains, there's a great quote, and I'm not going to remember it right now, but we think something like 90,000 thoughts or 30,000, probably like 30,000 thoughts a day. And I think like only like a less than like a single digit percentage is new. I think it's like 4. It's like so little. So we're just constantly in the loop thinking of staying stuck. So what if you made a move that was on the bolder side to get you out of that? And I want to just share briefly right now about my personal experience in this, where I was so antsy. Okay, here I am. I'm going to take you back. I was working at Google and like I said, I've loved my team. I love my boss. I liked everything. It was so different than when I wasn't before my pause, basically, because I was aligned and I had done the introspection to know what I needed. But but I was at the same time like so ready to and chomping at the bit to start my own business, to start Power of Pause, to speak more, to coach more. But at the same time, I knew there was an inkling inside of me that was just like, Rachel, just focus on building yourself right now. That was the previous episode. I talked about doing the inner work. I talked about my years at Wright Graduate University and the foundation in Chicago, where I did a lot of my training in addition to other training I did later and before, well, mostly after. But the the fact that if you're hanging around unhappy for a long period of time, it can just become the norm first. So we don't think we lose expectations actually of what we're capable of. And we've all, maybe you've been there, maybe you know what I'm talking about. You're like, oh my goodness, you're singing my song, Ray. Yeah. Because we talk ourselves out of things. There's things like self-doubt that creep in, or we just settle. Who are my settlers out there? I know that one. And for me, I took that 3-month break when I first took a pause back in 2011, which was my mini leap to make a bigger leap. But it led to the book, but I was still not very happy. I wanted to do these different things, but I had things that were carrying me through. So carrying you through is a big part of this journey. So hanging around unhappy, if you're not happy right now, like they literally take a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, low, zero, almost not, like I'm very unhappy, 10 being ideally happy and super fulfilled. Where do you put yourself on that scale right now when it comes to your career? Maybe it's a 5, maybe it's a 9, maybe it's a 3. Where would you put yourself right now? Okay, think about it. All right. Now, if you think about where you want to go, what's the move you'd want to make, right? Maybe it's that new job, maybe it's the promotion, new city, whatever. Where, how do you see yourself? What would be the number that you'd want to strive for? Most of us, we wouldn't stay the same, right? You'd go up. My chances of you saying going up is probably pretty high, right? So yeah, maybe it'd be that 10. You're like all in, I'm going in and going for it. And so why would you waste another moment being at that number you're at that you rated yourself and you want to go higher, right? And that's the idea, is when we are not happy with ourselves, unless we make a big move to just say, hey, I'm going to get a coach. I'm going to work with someone. So I have a plan that will put me in a new trajectory to get a new job. Let's say I've got a few clients working on this right now. In my executive leadership accelerator class, this is the course for corporate leaders who want to be blowing the doors off their career at work. We talk about a lot of these things that can be really nourishing at work and making these moves, but you just feel more fulfilled. So it can be either one. It can be a big move visually or somehow moving you across to a bigger thing, versus even the moves on your internal work can be big. If you talk to yourself differently, if you show up when you're more nourished. I have another client doing this where they're tired of working for other people and the negative mind that continues, but they're super talented and they want to be in another place. And yet these fears keep holding her back. So how do we do that, right? So there's these things that we need to do differently. So the key is, first of all, acknowledge where you're at, because if we're not acknowledging it, there's usually a denial there. There's usually something hidden that can be a blind spot that we can look at and say, well, what's going on there? And get curious, right? Remember to stay objective. And that's hard, but it's easy, like in that sense of what got you here won't get you there. So if you're feeling motivated, like, yeah, dude, I'm so ready. I don't want to pay the price anymore of staying where I'm at. Then it's time, my friend. That's what I'm here to tell you. It's time to change the game and create instances that fuel you. My TEDx talk, using push pause, turning burnout into personal fuel, talks all about this, where think of it like fuel. Okay, so what is it that inspires you now, so that even though you have to, like for me, I was like, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna earn money, I'm gonna be in this job that is okay, I'm enjoying it, but it's not like my calling, it's not what I love to do, but it's gonna get me to the next level. And in the meantime, I'm gonna work on myself, I'm gonna hire a coach, I'm gonna write my book. And these are just my own examples, but what would be your examples? Would it be, I'm going to focus on my kids, I'm going to start journaling every day, I'm going to hire a coach, I'm going to join a class, whatever those are? Because to me, that's a commitment. And when you commit to yourself, that's intention. And when you are intentional, you change the game. If we kind of go through it, meh, kind of, I don't know. I guess that sounds great. Maybe someday. It's not the right time. All of those things. we just waste time. It's really what it is. And life is short. Why would you waste another moment, right? So being in a place where you can take a risk and do something different, which might mean the next mini leap for you to get you to that leap, then I think that that's worth considering and creating the plan to get there. And for you, that's your preparation. That's you preparing in this time where you might not be that happy to know that there's more for you, but you're like it's awesome because you know you're working on it and it's only then a matter of time. Like you are closing the gap from that whatever number is that you got to today and are at to what you want to go to. To me, that's huge. All right, let's just pause for a moment, take a breath with me. How are you feeling right now? How are you feeling? Just a moment, close your eyes. Maybe you put a hand on your chest or your heart space. Just give yourself a moment to check in and name it. And if you notice thoughts, say, hey, thanks a lot. I'm just naming a feeling right now. And maybe it's encouraging, maybe it's not, but just being observant. Everything is data. Awesome. All right. So now when we think about what it is that you want to do that gets you through, and that is important. So what is it for you? What is it that's these little things where you're moving the needle towards this upper limit of happiness for yourself in that satisfaction thing. So you want a new job or you want to get a job or you want to make more money, whatever it is, like that's the thing that I'm talking about. And for me, this is one other side note I'll share. So, I was working on the book pause. I hired a coach. I had like one time I had three coaches. I had the personal development coaches at Write. I had a writing coach for pause, and I had an EQ, another certification I was working on, and then I had a business coach, Women Rocking Business. So I'm not shy of coaching, clearly, but to me, those were exponential times where even though I was at Google, I had so much going on. It didn't even matter where I was working, but I could work on myself because I knew I was in a space moving myself forward to ways that I know I wanted to go, whether it was leaving Google at one point, publishing pause, getting a publisher, or building my own business outside of Google and investing in myself. So writing the book pause taught me I was doing a lot of inner work at the time. I added a whole nother layer to that book that was on my personal story that, by the way, wasn't in the book until I hired a coach to tell me that. Like, how funny is that? So I think when you have projects, when you start things that serve you, they bring you joy, you're excited, like they light you up, they will fuel you to get to the other side of whatever it is that you're moving around or through, I'd say, probably hopefully moving through. That might be your kids and helping them in their education and helping them study at night or driving them around shuffling to soccer practice. Like engage in those activities because be present to them because they are important and you can know that they're moving you in the right direction. But what is it that you can also focus on that's moving you towards your dreams and the leaps you want to make? And the book Pause, obviously, it's a lot of tools about emotional intelligence, but it was me working on me. I would write on vacations. I would take vacations to write. I was working full time. So every weekend was writing essentially. I didn't have the bandwidth to write at night. It was just too much with work. And so you make time for what matters, in my opinion. In my case, I don't have kids, which was fortunate. I didn't, have to do this in addition to that. But it it was working on me and I was adding more of me to the book. And that was hard. That was scary, but I was remembering that this is who I need to be if I really want to show up for myself, be that authentic whole self I talked about in my capstone, and move into new spaces that were just beyond my corporate job at the time. And maybe, in my case, I wanted to start my own business, but for many of us, it's just crushing it in our existing role or getting a job or leaping into that next level of leadership, which I love to support my clients on, and it's totally doable. But what is it that you're doing now? If you're not happy, what is it that you're excited about and moving towards that will help you get there? All right. That's what I want to share with you today. And I think another last final tip I'll share here is how to tell when it's time to stop preparing. Because heck, we can prepare all time, all day, all night long, all weekend, every day and night, 24/7, whatever you put into it, versus acting. And I know this as a businesswoman, and I've heard my coach talk about this too. This is hilarious. Like, we can put our website together. We can file the admin side. We write things, but if we're not out there getting clients or starting a conversation with someone that can deepen a relationship that might end up for a referral or a speaking engagement or just a friendship, frankly, where I can offer value, right? These are all awesome opportunities. But I can do that till I'm blue in the face. But what would really serve me is to act. So writing down and doing one thing that'll move me into that space. Like in my example, let me just share one more example. I mentioned I'm going to start retreats that are going to be starting probably next spring, and it's going to be really exciting, a women's ski retreat in Vail, but it's also going to be personal development work with solo time and for women. I'm really super psyched. This is like something I've looked at wanting to do for 5 years. I'm just finally doing it. It's pretty funny. And uh, I need to write down the plan. I need to like book a Airbnb. I need to get the thing. So to me, that's the action steps to move me in that direction. And the first step, like the next thing I can do, the David Allen way, right? Getting things done. I love that. I reference him in the book Pause, is you write down on your to-do list the next tangible thing that needs to happen. And for me, it's just kind of brain dumping in my mind, everything from a logistics side that I know needs to happen for that. And that will become my plan. And so that's what I'm going to do. And so for you, the challenge I have for you is, what's one area of your life where you're almost, but not quite happy? Okay. So this isn't too hard. You just probably need to spend a couple minutes on it. What is that one area of life where you're almost, but not quite happy? And I want to hear about it. Let's get real. Let's hear what it is, because we have to acknowledge where we're at. It's like shining the light on the consciousness, on what's so, and having the roadmap. How do you know where you're going if you don't know where you are? And let's face it, we can put on the rose-colored glasses. This was one of my favorite things to do, and just pretend everything's awesome. I'm laughing because in many ways things are really awesome, but there's also things that are probably not awesome. And if you actually acknowledge those, then you can change them and make everything even more awesome, right? All right. I want to hear about it, and what's maybe one action step you could start to do with it. Maybe journal about it, but I'd love to hear it. Message me. I'm on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram. I am on here. You can leave a comment. You can email me. I mean, all my stuff is on my website. I would love to hear from you, because this is the final frontier of how you start to shape where you're going. And like I've been talking and all along, inner work is a huge part of that. As a coach, this is what I do. This is important for life-changing moves, big, high stakes stuff that feels really scary. And even though it might not sound on paper anything big, but we all know we'd all be living our dreams if we weren't feeling held back and resistant in some way. And it's most likely some unconscious limiting belief that you've had your whole life that we can just work through and help to change and transmute into an empowering belief and get you where you want to go. Okay. And the final frontier, what we'll talk about in this last chapter, which I will do very shortly in a future episode, is knowing how to own your story without the shrinking or the oversharing. That mindset shift that makes all the difference. It means you owning your story, being bold, having those humble brags, especially as women. I think this is a tough challenge for us. I talked a little bit about this before in episode 191, or sorry, 190, I believe, which is the art of owning your story, but we're just gonna expand on this next time, which is the art of, you showing up fully for you, and knowing that means you can own your story and help others, because when you own your story, you give permission to help other people own theirs, and you're your own authentic, beautiful self. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. If this is helpful, give me a rating, share this with a friend who could use some support around their journey right now if they're feeling stuck, if they're not feeling like they can move into a space that feels good. I don't care if it's a relationship, a career, whatever. I work in career, but you know what? This applies to everything because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. All right, my friends, much love.